The heavy oak door, its iron fittings cold to the touch, swung inward with a resonant groan that seemed to travel up the stone walls and into the very beams of the old house. For the first time in decades, daylight fell across the dusty flagstones of the grand hall of Forest Lodge, not as an intruder, but as a herald. Outside, the world buzzed with the news. The reclusive, historic estate, hidden deep within a private woodland, had been quietly purchased by the globe-trotting royal couple, seeking not a palace, but a sanctuary. As the new owners stepped across the threshold, they were unaware that they were not merely entering a house, but walking into a silent narrative, a century-spanning tale of grand ambitions, hidden sorrows, reckless glamour, and whispered secrets that the old stones had kept waiting for just this moment, for just such an audience. The air inside Forest Lodge was still and tasted of aged wood, dormant fireplaces, and time itself. The royal couple moved slowly, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous silence of the entrance hall. Their decision to acquire the property had been made in strict secrecy, a yearning for a true refuge away from the blinding flashbulbs and relentless schedules. They had seen photographs, of course, and architectural plans, but nothing prepared them for the palpable weight of history that pressed upon them. Sunlight streamed through a high, arched window, illuminating a floating galaxy of dust motes and falling upon a vast, faded tapestry on the far wall. It depicted a hunting scene, the threads of green and brown now muted, the figures of horses and hounds frozen in a perpetual, silent chase. To their left, a sweeping staircase ascended into shadow, its mahogany banister carved with intricate patterns of ivy and oak leaves, worn smooth in patches by generations of passing hands. The queen ran her fingers lightly over the carving, feeling the dips and curves made by unknown predecessors. Their guide, a taciturn local historian named Mr. Evans, who held the keys and the memories of the estate, watched them with a keen eye. It was built in 1887 for a man named Sir Alastair Finch-Hatton. He began, his voice bouncing softly off the stone. Not aristocracy by birth, but by wealth. New money from railways and steel. He built Forest Lodge not just as a home, but as a statement, a declaration that he had arrived. He pointed to the ceiling, where a magnificent but water-damaged fresco of a forest canopy showed cherubs and birds peeking through painted leaves. He wanted to bring the outside in. The entire house is a homage to these woods. As they explored, the layers began to reveal themselves. The grand drawing room boasted floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the overgrown gardens, but the silk wall coverings were ghostly, peeling in long, elegant strips. In the library, shelves stretched into darkness, empty save for a few forgotten volumes, their spines cracked. The king pulled one out. It was a ledger of household account from 1912, detailing the cost of candles, servants' wages, and the purchase of a new hunter mare. A mundane record of a vanished life. Mr. Evans led them down a narrower corridor to the heart of the house, the old kitchen. It was a vast space dominated by a cold, monolithic range. This, he said, is where the real life of the house happened. The Finch-Hattons entertained lavishly. Edwardian weekend parties that saw politicians, artists, and socialites flood these rooms. The stories say the champagne flowed like a river, and the laughter could be heard from stables. He paused, nodding toward a small, plain door at the back. That leads to the servants' staircase. A whole other world, moving silently behind the walls to keep the glittering show running up here. The tour concluded in what would have been the morning room, a brighter, smaller space with a view of a crumbling fountain. Here, the royal couple shared a quiet look. They could see it, the faded grandeur, the sheer scale of the restoration. But they could also feel the potential for peace. It was more than a project. It was an act of preservation. As they prepared to leave, the queen noticed a small, framed etching hanging crookedly by the door. It was a detailed sketch of the house as it was originally built, with manicured lawns and carriages out front. In the bottom corner, in a tight cursive hand, was written, "For E, my sanctuary and my stage. AFH 1888. She touched the glass gently, the first of many ghosts to make her acquaintance. Months passed before they could begin work in earnest. When the specialized architects and discreet construction teams finally entered, Forest Lodge began to exhale its long-held secrets. The initial phase was structural, checking roofs, reinforcing beams, rewiring the skeletal nervous system of the building. In the process, the hidden story of the house, the one not recorded in ledgers or sketches, started to emerge. Workmen restoring the master bedroom's fireplace discovered a loose stone in the back of the hearth. Behind it, wrapped in brittle oilcloth, was a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. The writing was a flowing, feminine hand, addressed to Sir Alistair's wife, Eleanor. There were love letters, but not from her husband. They spoke of stolen moments in the rose garden, of a love as fierce and forbidden as the woods are deep. The final letter ended abruptly with a sorrowful pledge to end the affair for the sake of her standing, signed only with the initial J. The discovery painted a new, poignant picture of the lady of the house, not just as a gracious hostess, but as a woman trapped in a gilded cage, her heart beating a desperate rhythm behind the serene facade. Down in the servants' quarters, a young carpenter pulling up rotten floorboards in a tiny attic room found a collection of small, hand-carved wooden animals, a fox, a hare, a flock of birds, hidden beneath the floor. They were exquisite, full of life and careful detail. Mr. Evans, consulted immediately, grew quiet. "That was Tom's room," he said. "The undergardener's boy, late 1920s. He was said to be simple, but had magic in his hand with wood. He'd likely whittled these from the scraps of the estate. Died of pneumonia one bitter winter. They found him here, curled up with these figures around him." The simple toys, cradled in a workman's calloused hand, spoke of loneliness, of small joys forged in obscurity, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the rooms below. The most dramatic find came from the walled garden. A team clearing decades of strangling ivy from a summer house uncovered a section of the brick wall that sounded hollow. Carefully, they removed a few bricks, revealing a small, dry cavity. Inside was a metal box, sealed tight. Within the box, protected by wax cloth, was a pristine, beaded flapper dress from the 1920s, a matching headband, a dance card from a London club, and a photograph of a laughing young woman with bobbed hair, standing next to a sleek motor car, with Forest Lodge blurry in the background. On the back, in looping writing, "Dearest Elle, keep these for me. Father must never know. The future is bright. Vivian." Research revealed Vivian was Sir Alistair's wild granddaughter, who reportedly fled the family after a scandal to live in Paris. The cash was her time capsule, a defiant preservation of her true, modern self against the stern expectations of her family name. Each discovery was a whisper from the past, confirming that Forest Lodge was not just a monument, but a living, breathing keeper of countless human stories, of love, loss, dreams, and defiance. The final transformation was not about erasing the past, but weaving it into the fabric of a new, lived-in present. The royal couple, guided by a deep respect for the house's soul, embarked on a sensitive restoration. The faded fresco in the hall was meticulously stabilized, the cherub's smiles preserved, but now lit by discreet, modern lighting. The grand drawing room's peeling silk was replaced with a similar, bespoke design, but the original color was matched exactly, a soft, botanical green called Forest Lodge Verdant. The king himself helped design the new library, filling the shelves with a blend of classic literature and contemporary works, creating a dialogue across centuries. The old kitchen, with its giant range, became a warm, spacious family kitchen, but the original stone sink and the servants' bellboard were kept as focal points, a nod to the army of staff who once worked there. The queen placed the collection of whittled wooden animals on a shelf in a sunlit nook of the morning room, a permanent tribute to Tom, the unseen boy. Vivian's flapper dress and photograph were framed and hung in a discreet corner of the upstairs landing, a celebration of rebellious joy. The overgrown gardens were gently tamed, not stripped. Paths were cleared to reveal old stone benches, and the walled garden was revived as a cutting garden, providing bouquets for the house. The crumbling fountain was repaired, and on the day water splashed into its basin for the first time in 50 years, the sound seemed to wake the very estate. Their first private weekend at the completed forest lodge was in early autumn. A fire crackled in the grand hall's hearth, casting dancing light on the tapestry. The house no longer echoed with emptiness, but hummed with gentle life. The soft clink of china, the murmur of quiet conversation, the distant bark of their dog exploring the grounds. That evening, as they walked through the moonlit garden, the queen slipped her hand into the king's. "It feels," she said softly, "as if the house is happy, as if it was waiting not for owners, but for guardians." Mr. Evans was invited for tea. As he sat in the morning room, now vibrant with light and fresh flowers, he looked around, his eyes slightly moist. "You've listened," he said simply. "Most people just want to build over the past. You've let it speak." Forest Lodge was no longer a dormant museum of memories. It was a home again. Its history, the ambitions of Sir Alistair, the secret sorrow of Eleanor, the lonely artistry of Tom,